Hello, everybody, and welcome back to WatchHaus. It has been one of the craziest weeks for Overwatch news, whether it's in the game or in esports. So we have so much to talk about, but of course, we are so fortunate today to have Thomas Maid here with us. He is the head coach of Second Wind, who has just won North American Contenders Trials. So thank you again to Maid for his time. We can't wait to get into that interview, but first, it's time for everyone to reset their watch. But Goopy, someone's kind of missing from
Something
our
strange.
conversation. Something's a bit off this episode. Can you explain to the audience what's been going on?
So I think it has to do with when we went to the underworld, I think, for the Halloween episode. I think Brandon
God.
came back. Dibble was back for a little bit, and I think he has descended back into the underworld of mainly sickness. Brandon is sick, does not have a voice, so will not be joining us, but he will be in the chat, either posting links, further answering chat questions, or just doing all things great in the chat. So that's where Thibble is, unfortunately not on camera with us this week.
He has been banished to Twitch chat, so that is another great experience for Thibble. But he has been really busy lately. He has an interview coming out with Zachary very soon, so I know I'm extremely excited to read his work there. And so much Contenders Trials coverage will be shared by Thibble. So this episode, we're going to have a lot of insight and exciting conversation regarding Contenders. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say in chat. Please hit him up if you have any questions.
Yeah, Thibble is kind of our resident Contenders Trials guru at the Game Haus. So really, he is a great resource. If you have any questions, check out his articles, and yeah, just kind of dive further into it. This past week, I started a series called Diamonds in the Rough. I'm really interested in telling the T2 and T3 players, coaches, broadcast analysts, all of their stories. I feel like we generally either tell the stories of players who have made it out of that, kind of from hindsight, like was that experience like? But we don't actually get into the trenches, so to speak, and talk to those players and those coaches. So I'm really excited to tell their stories. The first one that released was Beatdown Boulevard. He is a caster with broadcast.gg. He does a lot of really great stuff, and he has a really cool story. So please check that out. I've got more, I think, coming out tomorrow, and it'll be coming out the next 2 weeks, maybe even after that. Had a lot of good feedback, good response to the interview, kind of call out. So yeah. Katrina, what have you been working on?
So I have an interview with the incredible Sabriel Maston coming out very shortly, but I've been working a lot on casting the past week. Was able to cast Not for Normies, the recent tournaments. So I've been pretty busy with that. But today's all about WatchHaus, talking about these patch updates that just released, and of course, everyone's been waiting for our interview with Maid. This is something that I know that we've all been looking forward to. So Maid, thank you so much, first of all, for joining us tonight. I guess this morning for you.
It's currently 10:30 in the morning, so a bit of an early start, but good do the hours.
I really do appreciate it so much, and we've kind of come up with a couple of questions that I think will enlighten not only Goopy and I, but the rest of our audience about your experience as a coach. So I'm going to let Goopy take the first swing here.
Yeah. So Maid, so just kind of for starters, would you kind of just give us a bit of background for those in the chat who may not know what team you coach? Could you just give some background about maybe how you got started with that team and just how you've kind of started coaching in general?
So yeah, I'm the head coach for Second Wind, who came first in Contenders Trials this season. In terms of my background, I was sort of like one of the original TF2 players who came over to Overwatch when Overwatch came out, and I discovered that I'm actually, in fact, too old to play video games, but I am decent at telling people how to play video games. So I did transition into sort of this sort of staff coaching role.
That's cool. So coming from TF2, so were you familiar with a lot of people in that TF2 scene? Did you kind of migrate over with like Seagull, Sideshow, Clockwork, all those guys, or?
Yeah, I've met like most of those people, or talked to like most of those people, and I migrated over at the same time as they all did.
That's really cool.
What would you say is the biggest difference between the TF2 community and the Overwatch community?
In Overwatch, people care about winning. People are sort of like really enthused, and there's sort of like a big groundswell in terms of like being competitive. In TF2, it was always very starved of money, and it was always sort of about like this community rather than winning.
Yeah. Kind of on that same line of unfortunately kind of starved for money right now is the Overwatch, I think, T2 and T3 scene. So it's clearly been documented that that is a struggle for players and coaches. A lot of them are obviously working full time or in school, sometimes younger. In your opinion, what needs to be done to improve the Overwatch T2 T3 scene? Whatever kind of would be your I don't know, fixing points for that.
So, in my personal opinion, I've always felt that the Tier 2 and the Tier 3 scene needs to be a more open sort of tournament route rather than having sort of like preset Blizzard leagues. I think there's a lot more to be like made in terms of having third parties who can make tournaments and run them rather than having one league that goes for months at a time and really like swallows up any other competition possible. So if I was Blizzard and if I wanted to sort of like build up the Tier 2 and Tier 3 scene, I'd start allowing these sort of tournament license. I'd start looking to have shorter seasons but more frequent seasons so that people like really get out there rather than sort of like, locked out to the next contender season.
So when players are looking to join sometimes the exclusive higher leagues of Overwatch, what as a coach do you really look for when recruiting these players? What makes a player stand out from the rest?
So there'd be like a number of factors. Obviously, this sort of like in-game skill, like they need to be able to hit the heads. They need to be able to have that mechanical skill in-game. But I'm also looking for sort of like their adaptability, their ability to take criticism, which sort of like falls under sort of the title of coachability. And I'm looking for comms as well, which I think is an important part that's sort of underrated by a lot of players.
And kind of on that same line of adaptability, you had tweeted out something last week about how Second Wind adapted to a play that I think DCOD was doing on, I believe, Lijiang Tower, where he was positioning a certain way, and then you all reviewed footage, made some changes, and I believe came out against Goats and had a different kind of use that tactic to counter them. Just talk a little bit about maybe even that process in particular, or just the adaptability process as a coach, as a player. What is it like looking through VODs and kind of making that next move to something else?
I'm not going to lie there. It is definitely dull looking through VODs, but it's something you need to be doing as a coach just to get the most out of your team. In terms of that was something we had like picked up on like very early on scrimming against DCODs. And then we came into beat going like, we really like what he's doing there with this strategy. So we adapted to our own needs and like used it against Goats. And then when we ended up coming up against DCOD again, we had a strategy of our own there in terms of being able to counter what he did. But I think that scouting process and like the process of like finding out what enemy teams is doing is really, really, really important. It's something that's like very, very like non-obvious to the wider community because like obviously a lot of that kind of work is very, very secret and behind the scenes.
What is your opinion? So just today, we found out about some new observing tools that Blizzard will release for Overwatch. As a coach, do you think that the opportunity to be able to spectate single players, especially on the enemy team, will be an advantage and lead to greater play as we go further into Tier 2, Tier 3, and even Overwatch League?
Massively. I mean, I'm in both like the ability to like watch other people and to like watch your own footage, but this is going to be massive for improving players. Like there's going to be so much more content and ability to sort of like watch what players are doing and take the sort of the best examples and the best sort of like mechanics from that and apply it to your own game. But this wasn't possible before because of the lack of footage.
Yeah.
So I'm super pumped for that.
Yeah, I think it's the way coaches utilize this is going to separate maybe the good from the elite from coaches who just don't know how to analyze this footage. So I mean, maybe just as a aside, what is when you're looking through VODs currently with the current system, what are some things you're looking for? Like, what do you look for when you just sit through and watch a 2-hour VOD? Are you looking for just consistency as the other team does? Maybe mistakes your team's making? As a coach, what are you kind of looking for there?
I mean, I'm looking for all types of things, depending what my focus like going into that VOD was, because I try to very much like focus like what I'm doing on a very particular part of gameplay when I watch VODs at the moment, because the reality is it's very hard to take in everything at the same time when you're watching like a top-down VOD. It's so much easier to watch the same VOD a few times and focus on like an individual player and how they sort of communicate and sort of like act within like the context of the video.
Yeah. There's a question in chat that was just posted by the Dingo Baby. I think it's a good one. He's asking you, what do you think is the biggest difference between the average Overwatch League player and the average Tier 2 to Tier 3 player? Maybe, I don't know, you necessarily have experience coaching those players, but at least from observing, what is your perspective on that?
I mean, that's kind of like a hard question because I don't have access to these players or behind the scenes. But I'd say it's sort of like the security to be able to grind on like what they need to do and having sort of like a background staff who are really able to dedicate the time to giving those players what they need.
Yeah, I know like in traditional sports, like the facilities and things like that, just the ability to devote all that time as a college athlete or pro athlete is huge. So I can totally see that being the same here.
And interestingly enough, when you are describing the amount of time and security that players will have to build their own skills, how can some prospective coaches or analysts, what would be the best use of their time to be able to grow as an individual? Does a good coach have to be a good player to be successful?
I feel like there's like a bunch of differing opinions on this, but I don't necessarily think you have to be able to like execute as a player to be a good coach there. I think it's more important that you're able to analyze and constantly be able to like reiterate on like the play of your team, be able to bring them back sort of like, stuff that they can action on rather than like being able to shoot something in game.
Yeah. So I've got another question kind of inspired by chat, kind of a little bit of mix of both. So you've had experience coaching players from different nationalities than yourselves. I know you, in a past interview, you talked about you had coached a team that spoke Danish and comms, and you had to kind of work around that. With a lot of Overwatch League teams going to these mixed rosters, I know Philly even having 2 coaches. Can you just kind of speak to what it's like coaching players from different regions, different nationalities, language barriers? What's that kind of like as a coach working through all that?
So to some extent, like my experience is unique in that I've only coached English language teams and 1 Danish language team.
Okay.
So I've never actually had sort of a mix of both, and there's never been sort of that language barrier there because they all spoke the same language. In the case of the Danish team, I coached Singularity in Contender Season 1 in Europe, and I actually couldn't understand the in-game comms at all, which was a very big hurdle to come over, and I had to sort of change how I coached and approach that a huge amount.
Yeah, absolutely. And Danish as a language in general is almost impossible to understand anyway. So, I mean, that's just a whirlwind of stuff. I think just any other kind of my last question would be, do you have any advice to up and coming coaches? As someone who's just a fan, the idea of getting into Overwatch League coaching is just this like, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Where does one start in beginning this journey of coaching?
Just find the group of players and start watching their scrims, start like giving input, start watching VODs, both pro and your own. I started like my career as like a staff member as a VOD recorder, and I moved on from there. Like my first team, half the time I wasn't commenting on anything because I didn't know what I was talking about. But like as I watched more Overwatch and as I thought about it more, I got better at what I was doing. So I got to this point.
Yeah. Awesome. Good.
That's absolutely incredible. Just to hear that you can start from the bottom and then work your way all the way up to winning North American Contenders Trials. Was there moments throughout your journey to becoming a coach that you felt really dejected, or were there what were some pitfalls and some high moments throughout the past couple of years in your career?
So yeah, I think like anything, like being a player, like being involved in anything, like you're always going to have moments like where you're super dejected. I guess like personally, the moment I was like most dejected was when I came out of Australia in 2017 after having a bunch of great results. And I had to like realize that like even though I'd done well in Australia, it didn't result to being able to get opportunities internationally. And I had to put my ego in check and like work from the bottom up internationally as well. I'd have to say that my high moment is when I took Kanga to Contenders Land last season in Australia. after no one had rated us coming into that season, and we'd actually done really badly this season. And the team as a whole put in a huge amount of work to just like upset all these teams and make it to Contenders Land.
Yeah, it's wildly impressive. Gosh. Well, yeah, I mean, that's Maid. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. This has been, to me, hugely insightful. This is a lot of stuff that I had no idea about. It sounds like you are really on the up and up and are someone that a lot of coaches can learn from. And I'm excited to see where this new reviewing goes, this Overwatch League changes that have been made. I'm excited to see. I think this is where we'll see coaches really start to earn their money, and players will be more valued for having a more valuable coach. So, again, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us. We really do appreciate your time.
No worries.
Thank you so much, Maid.
All right, and so that's going to conclude our time with Maid. Before we get on to the next section about news, we do have an announcement to make. We have a giveaway, possibly, coming up at the end of the episode. Something big. Could be a giveaway. Could be something else, but I think it could be a giveaway. It's coming up at the end of the episode.
Can I apply for it? And if so, how can I?
That's a great question. Well, we're gonna reveal more about it at the end of the episode. So
okay.
It's gonna be a little bit of a cliffhanger. We're gonna bring it back up later. It's gonna be real exciting. But just stay tuned for that, and stay tuned on our Twitter. There could be things happening there as well. That's just a quick little announcement from the WatchHaus cast here as we make the very smooth transition to talk about big news.
There's been so much going on just in the past 2 days throughout, and of course the past week, of course, but the big roster changes, roster announcements for plenty of Overwatch League teams, even mascots. Where do you even want to start with this all, Goopy?
I mean, there's a lot to cover. Should we just start with the roster news first? Should that be the first thing?
I think we should, but before we do that, I think we do need to bring in an expert who does love Overwatch as much as we do. He doesn't always get to show his face, but he makes the biggest difference. Our producer, our friend, our boss, Rob. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
The ringer,
hey!
The secret weapon has entered the arena. Rob is here.
Oh, shush.
Welcome, Rob. Welcome. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's great to have you back. You've been on the show before when Katrina's power was out. You were here. You did a great job, and now you're back. You're killing it.
Oh,
excellent. Big yikes.
So all of you will be able to hear Rob, thankfully, because he has some amazing insight, especially when we get further into talking about Atlanta sports teams. I mean, that reveal, that
spicy,
the rain, it looks pretty cool. I'm excited for Atlanta.
Oh, me too. And I think people can finally hear me. So yay, nice. That's exciting.
Yes.
All right, but before we get to the Atlanta news, I kind of want to walk through. There were two bigger reveals with more players kind of moving around. The first of which is Shanghai. Shanghai announced that they are basically Kanga Pandera 2.0. They announced 6 players: Diem, Diding, Koma, Luffy, Youngjin, and Guardian are their pickups. Those are good. I mean, that's going to be huge. For those who don't know, Kanga Pandera finished second to Runaway in Korean Contenders last season. They're really good. If Runaway hadn't been just like this Goliath of a team, they probably would have won it. And it was a really close game anyway. I think it went to 8 games. I think that's what it went to. Could be wrong there. Thibble, our expert in Korean Contenders, can help you in chat with that.
And Rob, do you think though quickly that is Shanghai going to win at least a game?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. I mean, you got to remember, right? There are 8 new teams for them to try to play against. That it's their first time in the league. You know, you have to imagine they gained enough experience from last season. There is no way they can truly be the Browns and be garbage for 2 full seasons. There's just no way, especially with these roster moves. Again, I'm not an expert on the Korean scene, but from everything that I've been seeing, plus the people that they have now, there's just it would be shocking. for them to not actually win at least a match.
Yeah, this team is very good, I think. So yeah, I think with these 6 players, with Gigery still on the team as far as we know right now, I think this team is going to look to be a really serious team next year. I'm excited to see who else they get. But yeah, that was a massive pickup. Another big reveal is the Paris team. Announced just about everyone they picked up, and this was really huge. We know a lot of these players, but just kind to go over them. We have Soon from the Valiant, SDB, Nico, Danye, and if I'm mispronouncing any of these, chat, please just rip me to shreds. Hype, Cruz, Ben Best, Fincy, and LH Cloudy, Cloudy? I don't know about that one. But yeah, a lot of these players are looking really good. I'm maybe most excited about Ben Best.
Yes.
I think Ben Best really showed out during the qualifier for France.
True.
I read an article. It was put out by, I forget who it was put out by, but it was like 7 things that we're noticing as trends this offseason. I forget who wrote it. And oh yeah, Shadowburn as well. But 7 things that are kind of trends this offseason. And one of them was that teams are really valuing main tanks. They're putting a high premium on their main tank. That's what Ben Best is. He's an incredible Reinhardt player. So I think them signing him is a big compliment to him, and I think it shows that he's going to do a lot. Do you guys have any other highlights on Paris?
Oh, the DPS is going to be incredible. Of course, the 2 most familiar names are Soon and Shadowburn, who was released from the Philadelphia Fusion and soon has left LA Valiant to pursue this Paris team. Interesting styles coming in. We do have that hit scan specialist in Soon. Amazing Widowmaker play. We all saw the France qualifiers right there. Brilliant. But he is most well known for his aggressive tracer play, which I'm kind of curious to see what the head coach Damon will be able to use his big brain to determine whether or not this DPS duo will be more aggressive or a bit more patient like Shadowburn. Everyone does talk about how long Shadowburn does hold those Genji blades, and EQO did have a lot more playtime than him for the Fusion. So that's going to be a very interesting story point for Paris as we do move forward. However, I agree with you with Ben Best. Definitely a player to watch, especially as we do go into the World Cup. France will be playing against Team Canada. So I'm kind of anticipating. Remember how XQC was against Neil on Team Brazil? How that tank battle was just intense and aggressive and determined so much of the play and how I feel like Neil was really the backbone of Team Brazil and his aggressiveness was supported. I think we're going to see something very similar for XQC versus Ben Best. So I'm going to be looking at that to kind of determine how strong and a bit more about his playing style overall.
Yeah, that's good. Kind of moving on, the next big thing is the Atlanta Reign. It was announced. We only know we know officially Overwatch has confirmed. Overwatch League has even put it out in a minute promo video they made. So we know this is for sure their logo, for sure their name. Rob, being kind of a sports guy, traditional sports guy, talk about what this means for Atlanta. This is a big deal, right?
I mean, it's huge. Not only are they obviously getting a team, which is fantastic, but they're sticking with the branding that Atlanta people know, right? And the reason to geolocate is to get people interested from that area, right? Like, you automatically feel connections to your hometown. At least a lot of people do. And so by making it, I believe it's going to be a phoenix. I believe their logo looks like a phoenix.
It is.
It keeps with the bird trend. You have the Thrashers that were a bird logo. You have the Falcons and the Hawks as well. And then their soccer team is just Atlanta. I don't really think they have a mascot, but like the ability to continue with that trend, which is something I predicted and I was hoping quite a bit for this expansion. I was like, okay, if they can stick with colors that are known, because Atlanta also has always been red of some type. This is a different type of red, closer to the Falcons than it is to the Atlanta Hawks. But it just adds so much to people. Like, when you say, hey, we have an Overwatch team, they're the Atlanta Reign, here's their logo, they're going to be like, holy crap, like, that's another bird. We're all about this, right? So I think it's just a really smart branding decision, I was a little upset that it got leaked on accident. I was really hoping, because they've been hyping it up for so long on Twitter, and then they don't even get to be the ones to announce it, which is disappointing for them. So I loved it. Cannot describe to you. I've been waiting for teams to do branding for weeks now. I've been trying to predict it. This is the closest I think I'm going to get. I should have predicted the Toronto one that's apparently getting leaked. I feel like an idiot for not predicting that one, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll deal with it later.
What teams in Season 1 do you think did the best job with branding?
Oh, it's so tough.
That's Houston. I think by sticking with the green wall, I think that was genius. As a history buff, I loved the Spitfire. My dad instantly connected with them. He wears his Spitfire shirt that I got him all the time. I think that was a good one. I think I like Soul Dynasties. Not only is the Tiger, amazing, but the Gold and Black, not only to stay with the Gen G sort of, feel, but it really gives that sense of royalty that they're trying to give off. So just to name a few, I think the ones that struggled were the Valiant. While I love what they did, I hate their color scheme. Sorry, Valiant. Sorry, Heather, if you're watching.
Rip.
But them, and it took me a long time to get used to the Excelsior. A long time. I actually hated that name for probably the first stage, maybe a little bit into the second stage. I got used to it. I'm not even a huge fan of the rain necessarily, because people might think of literal rain, but I love the logo, I love the color scheme, so I can deal with it.
I know that some people about the rain announcement have accused. Actually, no, I'm thinking of the leaked Toronto one, the Venom. I've accused it of looking like Shanghai's, which I was going to say was one that I really like. Big fan of Shanghai's. But another one that I really like, but I also think has the most potential, is Florida. I think the logo of Florida is incredible. I think the M bomb thing is great.
I agree.
The yellow and black has kind of struggled and has not grown the most with some people, especially when you have the Miami Vice kind of runaway possibility color scheme, which I think would be incredible, like the Miami Heat did for their jerseys.
Yep.
That's what we all want, so let's just go ahead and accept that. But, I think their logo is pretty awesome. What about you, Katrina?
I am biased, but I think the Outlaws logo was brilliant. The lime green, excellent. And I just remember when I was first introducing my father to Overwatch League, he was very skeptical at first, but the logos helped truly legitimize this organization as a whole. And a lot of these logos can match up with traditional sports. Like you do have very iconic imagery, especially from, I did say Houston, but even from the Mayhem, who else has, I know the colors of Valiant aren't phenomenal, but that logo is very well done.
Yeah,
amazing.
Big fan. But there's so many. There was actually another great question I thought about that was posed in chat. Let me find it real quick. It was about we're talking about Atlanta, how we don't really know about their players right now. And there's a question posed in chat about players who are looking for a team who played in Season 1. Who do we maybe think won't get signed in Season 2? Or
won't get signed, or
we could even possibly talk about who we think Atlanta might go after. What do you guys think?
Won't get signed is interesting.
I'm
trying to think.
I'm sorry, Thibble, but Siegel, he's retired.
Yeah,
Rip.
The one player that I guess who a lot of people think I'm crazy for, and I know he said it on chat or on Twitch that he won't. I still think somebody's going to take a chance on XQC.
Yeah.
I with the way that he's been playing in the Overwatch World Cup, with, I think getting that drive back, and what he has seen, and he's said it on Twitch as well. He's kind of contradicted himself, because I remember watching a clip of him saying, I missed the competition. Like, he was watching the Fuel play in the Stage 4 playoffs, and he was like, dude, that's my team. Like, I missed the competition. I really do. I would not be overly shocked if somebody goes out and says, all right, guys, we need to go sign him. Let's try to rein him in. There are a lot of people who have done a lot of worse things and said a lot of worse things, who are still in traditional sports teams. And they're a lot more, tight knit on the way things are being run. And I think if somebody like, again, because I know I talk about a lot of different esports, like Tyler won in League of Legends, which is notoriously bad. He got banned for basically an entire year from the game itself. If he was able to get back into the good graces of League, I think that XQC can get back into the good graces of the Overwatch League.
Yeah, and inevitably these kind of like bad boys of the game, or whatever we want to call them, are going to have their loyal fan bases. Their streams, XQC's stream is pretty toxic to watch, and a lot of the fans can sometimes like spam super toxic stuff as well. But if he were to go somewhere, they're going to sell jerseys. Like if he goes to Atlanta and you get an Atlanta Reign XQC jersey, like that's going to be really marketable, unfortunately. I still don't know if he's there as far as a top tier main tank, honestly. I think he's pretty good, but I think we've seen a lot of other players kind of up and coming that could be better. But it definitely is an interesting. Katrina, you're making some faces like you just hate all of this. So what do you think?
Why the heck would he ever go back to Overwatch League? He has such a great gig right now with streaming. I don't buy it. Like, yes, I love the competition. He can always do World Cup. I think with XQC, Overwatch League provides too much restraint for what he wants to be able to do. He can control his schedule. He has a very great income coming in from Twitch. He can say whatever the hell heck. And so can I. Take that. He can say whatever the heck he wants on stream. And he will have plenty of people who will love him or hate him. He will be getting the views regardless. I think Overwatch League is a bad career move for him. This comes from a purely non-player standpoint, so take that as you will. But I don't agree with that at all.
I got a quick. I will keep it, quick response. Let me just put it this way: do you think somebody like, and XQC is nothing like this, but do you think somebody like Tom Brady plays into his 40s with all these concussion things because he needs to make the money?
No, it's for the love of the game, but XQC has that love of the game through competitive during his stream.
You're right, but I think as the Overwatch League grows, he is somebody who is very much about himself, right? And what is the best way to cement your legacy? In a league. Not on Twitch, in a league. Because let's say that he comes back and he just kicks the crap out of everybody. He plays really, really well. He has a 10-year career, and guess what? XQC is in the Hall of Fame. Because this is what people have to think about with esports now. You can't think short-term Twitch streaming, right? You got to think long-term, because he can always go back to Twitch stream, and he'll even get more fans if he gets his act together and plays in the Overwatch League correctly. I mean, the fan base is only going to grow there. It's not going to grow as much on his stream. So I understand your point, and I understand a lot of people in chat's point, but I'm just telling you, as somebody who looks as much about the future as I do currently in Overwatch League, I think players that, like even Siegel, I think made a mistake, truly. I understand it was really stressful, and the league is tough, but they're making the changes necessary, I think, this year to make it a lot less strenuous on these players. And I think that when there's a players' union that finally comes about, which that's a whole nother topic for another day, you'll see a lot more of these types of players coming back. And I bet you, if somebody offers XQC an insane salary of like, $300,000, $400,000 a year, maybe more, to come in because they know they're going to make all that back on jersey sales alone, then yeah, I think he'd take that, because that'll make up for the amount that he's missing while streaming.
And then do you think, though, that players... Sorry, this is just really interesting topic to me. Do you think players like Miro or Gambler, who were on Soul Dynasty, who now have also a bit of scandal to their name, I would say, would they ever have... Why are so many players then going over to streaming? Is it because of this short-mindedness, not really looking at legacy, do you think?
I think
it could be.
Yeah, you go, Connor.
No, it could be. I mean, it's like kind of like what Rob was saying. It just kind of depends on what the league is going to be in the next 3 years. because currently in esports, like Ninja, for example, we can talk about Fortnite being an esport or whatever, but Ninja is an ambassador for the brand of Fortnite. He streams and publicizes it that way, keeps views up on Twitch. So in a sense, like Overwatch needs people like that, like Mendo, like Emong, people like that playing for teams representing the brand of Overwatch that way. And so I think there's always going to be a future for that. But if the league becomes, I think it's going this way, like the premium for high quality Overwatch, and you almost are considered less serious if you're not in the league or something like that, then we'll see these players who may have kind of recessed back to streaming because it's easier to go back into the league because it is like the ultimate test, or like it's taken more seriously, or if salaries just go through the roof. So it's going to depend on, I think, the development of the league, and players union is another thing that we talk about another time. But yeah, I think it just kind of depends.
I mean,
honestly,
it is. If they want Overwatch to survive, for them to make money streaming, the Overwatch League has to survive. Right. Period. I mean, look at the drop on Twitch. You can't just depend on XQC or whoever, Seagull even, streaming to keep the game alive, right? Because they can change games whenever they want to. Okay, yeah. And they have to understand that the following that they build, the only way it's going to get a lot bigger is either if they switch games or if Overwatch continues to get really popular. And Overwatch is already turning into an esport that has more of a following watching the Overwatch League than people who are even playing the game, which is great because that means it's maturing very quickly. And people may not think that that's great, but I'm telling you, there are a lot more people who watch baseball, football, and basketball than play it competitively or play it every day. So this is a good thing for Overwatch. But the thing is that you don't know, your stream could die out any day. But a consistent salary and the ability, and to me, it may just show that they don't believe in the league, which is a whole nother issue. I don't understand why they wouldn't believe in the league. Because when you're able to add 8 teams at $40 million, almost double the amount that it was or 40 to 60, depending on, what team it was, double what it was the year before in only 1 year, and get major names in on it, including 3 different Chinese teams. I'm telling you right now, if you're not betting on the Overwatch League to make it, you're making a mistake. And by not cementing your legacy as somebody who can play for whatever amount of years early on, I mean, people in other esports who played early on for a couple years and battled through it have some of the biggest followings. And I think that they will end up regretting not playing. Like, if somebody does an interview with XQC or Seagull even, and they never went back to the Overwatch League, and it's still destroying as it should in 10 years from now, and they interview them, they're going to say one of their biggest regrets was not playing, in my opinion.
So if XQC comes back, is he going to be like the heel of the league for WWE comparisons? Like, are we going to see Jake being the face just walking around and then XQC being like,
I mean, no.
Sorry, I'm just...
It's okay. I understand why people don't like him, but I'm saying, like, for the brand, for Overwatch League even, they should want him back. They should. I mean, there are more people interested in watching Canada because of XQC than anybody else on that team. That's just the reality of it. And I understand why people don't like him. Trust me, I do not like him that much, personally. I'm not a fan of his. But I'm not a fan of a lot of people who I enjoy watching play the competitive game that I enjoy watching. So
yeah, it's tough.
Sorry, I didn't mean to send us on this tangent, but it is something that I think we need to consider.
You're good. I think this is something we could talk about for a long time, because this gets into like the differences between esports and sports. This gets into a whole melting pot of issues. But for the sake of time, since we have 20 minutes of official showtime left or whatever,
shoot,
it'll be an hour.
Yeah,
20 minutes. I do want to get to the patch notes. So really quickly, before we get to, I think, the most exciting thing that was released today by Kaplan, is the hero changes that we're going to see. So we're going to see, for example, big changes to Mercy, Reaper, Roadhog, and Symmetra are the 4 big ones. Mercy's getting a buff to her Valkyrie, so it's easier. She builds it up quicker, and the healing per second is increased from 50 to 60. Pretty good change there. Reaper's his shotguns, it says the spread randomization is reduced by 50%. So I think it's just like a more consistent shot. And his life steal is increased from 20 to 30% damage dealt. So it's just going to be a little bit more survivable, a little bit more direct with damage dealing, which I think is good for Reaper. He's a tough play right now, I don't really know how you'd play Reaper right now. So it's a good change. I think he'll even get buffed more in the future if I were guessing. But the big one is Roadhog. So Kaplan in the video talked about how he wants the hook to feel more like natural. It just kind of feels weird right now, which I didn't necessarily have that feeling, but it's good that it's being changed. But so it's decreased the delay before pulling in a hooked target from 0.5 to 0.3. So like instead of him just like burp, burp, it'll be like burp, burp, something like that. Maybe just to give you a little taste of what
it makes a huge difference.
That is massive. That's like halftime delay. So
like I played Roadhog on the PTR before this episode, and it feels night and day to me. I feel a lot more control, not only with the hook, but for his ultimate. For Whole Hog, a lot of the times when I would use that in the past. Now, let me just say that I'm not a professional player, so yeah. But but no, when you're using that Gatling gun, I felt like it was always going up and down, and there wasn't a lot of wow, my hands. There wasn't a lot of ways that I could control. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Okay. Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of way for me to control the ultimate, let's just say. I felt like it was not very useful. When I used it on the training bots, which might not be the best way to compare things, but I just felt like I could direct where all of those bullets were going a lot easier.
Yeah, so and just to clarify there, so on his Whole Hog, it's the horizontal recoil is what's getting decreased, so it's just not going to feel as like spontaneous, like you're saying. It's not going to feel as crazy to use it. And like the chat is pointing out, the chain hook, it's not only a shorter delay, it's being heavier momentum, quicker momentum, and the cooldown begins immediately right after you use it, not after they've been pulled. So you're going to get it quicker as well. And then his gun, just in general, spread randomization is reduced by 50%. So very similar to Reaper in that way. It's going to be more of a precise thing. And it says the spread pattern adjusted for both primary and secondary fires. So it'll just be consistent whether you're using one or two mouse. So last thing is Symmetra. Her primary fire beam charges up 20% faster. So when she's using her main little projectile beam, takes a while to kind of get going right now. The 20% I think is going to be pretty big. I think that makes her a lot more usable, kind of like the old Symmetra where you could chain to people and it would kind of rev up really quickly. Mm-hmm. I think we'll see it even faster than that, just maybe make her a little bit more viable as far as damage dealing goes. So I think that's good. Currently, she's just really hard to use unless you're like an incredible tracker, unless you can just absolutely stay on someone or you just pick a tank like a diva and just lock onto them. This will maybe help give her a little bit more quick use against squishier heroes. But like I hinted at, I think the most exciting change is in this viewing. So Katrina, would you want to kind of tell us about that a little bit?
This is probably the biggest change to Overwatch from the esports perspective that we will get in an extremely long time. Right now, Overwatch has decided to test out a beta version, which they will be releasing during World Cup, where viewers can choose to spectate a single player. They can take control. They can be an observer in their own home practice. So not only will they be able to go through the map, they'll be able to watch. If you just want to watch the Mercy play the entire time, you can do that. If you want to build up your tank play, you can do that. Watch Ben Best. So there's just so many opportunities for viewers at home to be able to personalize their experience. Crazier is replay. Being able to replay, change the motion, the stop motion, slow motion, of individual moments, seeing from different views, repeating that over and over. This is an analyst's dream right here. This is something that when I saw this, I practically shrieked. I was so excited. As a caster, I'm very, as a color caster in particular, this will help me not only improve my in-game analysis, but I'm a little bit nervous too when I'm casting that every single person watching has the potential to be watching a different player at the same time. So if I miss something huge, I'm screwed. If I say something wrong, I'm fruit flied, I'm screwed.
Fruit flied, that's a new one. I like
Fruit flied, that's tough.
Yeah, so but ultimately phenomenal for this game. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm excited about, we talked about this in the Maid interview. I mean, this is going to be you'll get VODs from your game after the game or something, and the coach will be able to sit down with his team. Maybe even if you expand the coaching staff in Overwatch League in the future, you could have like a tanks coach, a DPS coach, and a support coach or something like that, like offensive defensive coordinator kind of thing. And you sit down and review plays with that individual player. Like, this is massive, especially as the league expands financially and teams are able to level up coaches. I mean, you'll have players just walking through every little minutia part of their game, improving, and then on the other hand of that, seeing what other teams are doing. You'll be able to watch what every player on the other team has been doing individually throughout games. So I think what this will put a premium on is players that can diversify their play style. So you look at players like EQO or Tavik that can play a lot of different heroes. I feel like that would be a scouting nightmare to try and figure out, okay, what's EQO going to do on Boscaya this time on attack? He could play Sombra, he could play Pharah, we could play Genji, we don't know. So I think that's going to be really exciting. The other big one I'm just kind of randomly excited for is it'll make better frag videos. Someone I think posted this on Twitter. I don't remember where it was, but it'll be great for just like expanding the league. We'll see cooler highlight videos of like individual plays. We won't have to rely on the one observer desk catching it. And so like that, like the Prophet play, like we'll have his POV all the time. The Carpe play, like we won't have to possibly miss those things. So I think it'll be cooler for getting highlights. Maybe a lot more ESPN top 10 plays. Always looking for those, And so yeah, I think it's good all around. I think. But Rob, what were some things that you saw out of there that were kind of exciting for you?
So I want to clarify: are you able to do this live? Right? Isn't that
Yes.
what they're planning on doing?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So I'm gonna say maybe 2 or 3 things here really quickly. The fact that you can do it live is revolutionary in anything. It does not even matter what it is. There's never been this kind of inclusion of the fan. And I'm going to tell you all right now, that is one of the greatest things that I've ever heard, especially for this esport in particular. In an esport where people are always complaining that it's too confusing to watch and too hard to understand, well, now you can choose. You can stop whining, and you can choose how you want to watch the game. And I think that is so unbelievably important for this esport and game-changing. Like, if you did, again, I was talking about not believing in the league. I'm sorry, but like this right here makes this potentially the esport of the world if they do it correctly. They have to deliver on what they're saying, okay? That is the one thing that they are going to have to do, and if they don't do that, it's going to be interesting. But this kind of fan engagement, they're always, leave it to Blizzard and Overwatch to always be first in making this stuff happen. I'm thrilled that they are. The one thing that I really want to see out of Overwatch is a change up in strategies. And I think that this is going to give us the opportunity to make it happen. There's always one predominant strategy that's really, really good. And I don't want that. I want it to be where there's maybe 4 or 5 in the Overwatch League that are all able to work together, right? And have, maybe one strategy that totally competes with the other. We've had GOATs, we've had Dive Comp, we've had you have the one big name. I want this to be able to give these coaches the time to truly understand exactly every movement that their player is doing in an easier way, because it's not that they couldn't do it before, but this is so much easier. It's time saving. They don't have to go in and change the VODs themselves to make this happen. And I think that you're going to see, starting Season 2, multiple strategies. You'll see people finally use, not just because of their changes, but finally use heroes like Torb in Symmetra and, whoever else may come out that may not be that great, because they're going to find ways using this to legitimately strategize each part of the game and what to do better with the movements and with the angles that they're able to get and where they can go with things. It is incredible. I cannot tell you all how much this makes me happy to know that they're finally doing this, to give this, and people will use it in other esports, by the way. Once they are done using it, they get their big advantage. They'll sell this stuff to the other esports if they don't figure it out on their own first, and they're going to make bank off of it. So this is an incredible technology that they needed to do, and they did it. Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Katrina, do you have anything else on it, or did we covered it?
I mean, I think that it's going to be interesting from a developmental perspective. There's so many perspectives you need to look at this from. The average viewer, the professional player, the casual player, the caster, the analyst, content creator, writers. Everyone benefits, though. Well, mostly. There's cons, of course, to every single system. But having access to all of that information, it's almost like you're watching GoPro footage from a baseball player at the same time as having a mind reader. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's so one pitfall I could potentially see is if you are watching a single player the entire time. I'm curious to see if there will be a jump in toxicity or hatred towards specific players. Like if you're just watching a single DPS and he or she has a horrible game, like I'm just right now pulling at strings, to be honest.
I think one thing we could see it really punish is players with a lower game sense. So players that fail to adapt to being scouted at this level, I think that's who it's really going to punish. So this is mainly the pro scene, obviously. I don't think that it's going to affect the casual player. But I do think that players who just rely on their mechanical skill, just clicking heads, if you're able to scout them and know exactly where they're going to be because they stand in the same spot every time they play Widow, like it's going to be a lot easier for you. So that's something I think I can see happening with players, but it'll definitely be interesting to watch. That's for sure.
I wouldn't be too worried about that, if I'm being honest, because they'll still be getting the same coaching to be able to make the changes necessary. You know what I mean?
That's true.
I'm more worried for the league because the casual fan's going to think that they are the almighty and that they know everything. Because they'll be like, "Oh, I've been watching Jake. He's not pulling that rip tire fast enough. Like, come on now. Like, he's not doing it in the right spots.
True.
Like, that's what I'm most worried about. But I think that's again, like Katrina was saying, grasping for straws. Really, I mean, there's not a whole lot that could go wrong with this. It should only, unless again, the only thing that goes wrong is if it doesn't work. Is if they announce it and then it doesn't work, and then they look really dumb.
Also really good for detecting aimbotters. Sorry to interrupt you, Rob.
Oh, no, that's fair too. I like that.
Yeah, that is really good.
I know it's not as big of a problem right now as it was when the game originally came out, because I remember playing it, and I mean, it was so obvious. I actually stopped playing for like a month until they started finally doing the bans, because I was like, I'm tired of getting headshot for no reason, right? I was plat in the first season, so I was actually playing decent people, unlike I do now. So, Now people could aimbot, and I could still kill them, because they suck.
So, speaking at drawing for straws here, I kind of want to draw for straws on the new Toronto team that is about to be released. So tomorrow, if you haven't heard, they're going to stream something about their reveal. I don't know if it's going to be roster. I'm guessing it's going to be roster. At least branding, I think, would come out. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of talking before the show a little bit about what were 3 players that we might expect from this team. It's tough. I mean, we're guessing a lot of this. Who knows? But Thibble gave his, actually. Katrina, do you want to kind of share what Thibble's were that he had listed?
Yes. An interesting point that Thibble was saying is that he thinks that new North American teams will potentially shoot for North American cores with other Korean players filling out the rest of the team, excluding if Runaway will be headed over altogether. So the 3 picks that Thibble decided to pick were Mangachu, Clone Man, and Adam. So Adam, we are quite familiar with being on the 2017 United States World Cup team on support, has a very good merge. He was also on NYXL Academy, and Mangachu will be in the World Cup once again for Team Canada. Excellent Doomfist.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely a possibility. I think that we're going to see this roster possibly as a picking up of the pieces from the old Florida roster and maybe some additions. So I think 3 players that if I were to bet 3 players to be on this team, I would say Zappis, Logix, and Reinforce. I think this is the team that Reinforce has been trying out for that we haven't heard about maybe. And I think this is his comeback. I don't know if he would start at main tank. We've talked about in the past how Reinforce is one of those that I think would especially benefit from the scouting system. He's got a really huge brain for the game. I think would be incredible for it. So I think we could see a little bit of not a full Western team maybe. I think we could see this team being like a Philadelphia, where there is a mix, and I think they pick up some of Florida's best talent they passed on, and maybe didn't utilize the best, and then maybe mix that with some Korean talent as well. I think that could be super interesting. I don't know what you guys think.
Have they? I can see that happening. Have they announced, or does anybody know where Zachary's going yet?
Ooh.
I could see him going there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep. I try to keep up with as many esports as I can. But another one that I was looking at, because I started looking into this question once I found out I was going to be on the show tonight. Another one was FCT. I don't know exactly how to say his name. Yeah, Fiction. So,
Fact Fiction. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought maybe him.
Yeah.
I could see Mistakes going up there. You know, I think they're. I think one of the other people that I was almost certain was Mangachu. Like I almost feel like he's like, I don't know why, but I the feeling I get is that he's either going there or Vancouver. I feel like. Yeah,
it makes sense for him to stay Canadian. That would be cool. I think the Fact Fiction and Mistakes thing is interesting though. That kind of touches back on that first question. Those are two players that were incredible. I mean, Mistakes I think was incredible in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Fact Fiction just wasn't in a system for him to shine. I mean. Yeah. It's just hard to play tank with Muma and Cool Matt and Spree. It's just a tough grouping to be in. I think he's a good player, but that could definitely. I didn't even consider those two. That'd be really interesting. But yeah, that's just an interesting question.
I will say tomorrow's definitely going to be. They're 100% going to do the brand. If nothing else, they will do the brand and probably at least a player or two. If anything less would shock me, and like I was saying at the beginning, if it's not a snake of some type, it may not be the Venom, as we've seen on the Reddit and Twitters, but it would shock me because Splice is a team that likes their snakes. I met their owner one time. I ran into him in Boston actually when I was going to League of Legends World North American Finals. He just happened to walk into the same coffee shop that we were in, and this being like my first major esports event, I was like, "Hi, how are you?" Like he's just like, we got to talk to him for a few minutes, and they love the branding. They wanted to be here in North America. They had always been over in Europe. They just got kicked out of League of Legends. They didn't get into Europe there, so I think they're going to put all the branding, everything they can into this Overwatch team. So I'd be shocked. I'd also be shocked if they weren't yellow and black. That's the reason I didn't believe in the Venom one, because I was like, I can see them being the Venom, but I would be shocked if they're not like a Bumblebee type color, because that's what they are normally. Follow the Outlaws.
I really want the Toronto Trash Pandas, the Toronto Raccoons. That's just a personal kind of thing.
That would be awesome.
If I were, throwing that in the
Trash
bucket.
Pandas.
I don't know if we would call them by their non-preferred name of Trash Panda, but it would alliterate pretty well. So that's just a side note. Maybe they keep the black and white with that. Who knows? Just a kid can dream. That's all I'm saying. But,
be a dreamer. Never stop dreaming, my friend.
Speaking of big dreams, all of you at home have been waiting for our big announcement at the end of this episode. And what's going to happen?
Wow.
Should we take it over to Rob?
Oh, I'm going to get to do the announcement. Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right. So it is going to be a giveaway. We are going to be doing a giveaway. We do, thanks to your favorite seagull masked man, have one free virtual ticket to BlizzCon. One free ticket to BlizzCon. Super pumped to be giving this away. There will be I believe it'll be on the Overwatch Twitter, or the WatchHaus, Twitter, that it'll be given away through Gleam. You'll have to make sure you do all the cool stuff. But if you can get yourself to LA, we got a ticket for you to give away. So, or it's not in LA, is it?
It's virtual. It's virtual.
The ticket is.
This is a virtual ticket. Okay. It's like an online experience kind of deal. You get a sweet Sombra skin for having bought it. I think maybe one of the best skins in the game. So make sure and tune in on Twitter And make sure and watch next week as we announce the winner. I think it's going to be at the end of the show next week.
It will be. And you need to be in chat.
You better be in chat.
You got to be in chat. If you're not in chat, then you don't get it. Okay? So make sure that you're here.
There's so many reasons to watch next week's episode. I mean, we have the interview with IOStux next week. It's going to be incredible. He was head coach for XL2. Took them to the Contenders Finals against Fusion University. He's a really good coach. He now is privately coaching, looking for a team in Overwatch League. Shrouded in mystery. I don't know that we'll be able to hear much about that. But he's an incredible coach, really cool guy. Excited to interview him next week. And then after that, we'll have BlizzCon. And so the show after that, we'll be talking to Dustin Steiner of Unicorn. He's going to do like a post-BlizzCon show with us. Dustin's a really cool guy. Check out his stuff. Big inspiration for me as well. So it'll be really sweet to sit down and talk with him. And then, the giveaway. So we've got a lot of cool stuff coming here at WatchHaus. This is a great time to be a fan. This is good stuff, guys.
Yeah, be a fan early, because then you have a better chance of getting all the cool stuff and seeing all the cool stuff. Like, come on. It's always good stuff.
Yeah.
Who's taking us
out? Katrina, you wanna wrap it up? I don't know how to host. I don't know how to do this hosting thing.
Where's
Thibble?
Where is Thibble when you need him? What am I even doing here at this point when Thibble's not here? Like, come on. Like,
so
he has no voice. Oh, okay.
Oh, please.
We know your tricks.
Thibble was just embarrassed about his Junkenstein performance, and I know so many of you have been waiting online to see that video. It's going to be coming out ideally next week. We know you've been patient, and we want to bring you the best content you can. Oh, and it looks like someone is now in our chat. Hi, Thibble.
What is this tomfoolery?
You call him out, and he comes.
I heard somebody saying that I was the problem and he Junkensteins.
I think our viewers will have to decide.
They'll have to decide.
When we post that video, I think we'll all know who the problem child was. And it's not
Goopy.
Katrina.
It's Goopy.
Dwarf Hammer was clutch, guys.
All right.
We will see. We need to wrap this up.
Anyways, now that we have everyone in the family back, even Thibble. Anyways, thank you again so much for tuning in. Thank you to Maid for all of his time. We have so many exciting things coming up, and I can't wait to share them all with you. Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
See ya.
If you liked that, hit the subscribe button for more interviews and other great sports and esports content. Make sure to also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter to stay up to date on all the news from your favorite sports and esports players and teams. From our house to yours.